afternoon, and welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. I regret eating the Pizza Hut. That was probably a bad idea. But I'm a simple person. I go to Target. I get Pizza Hut. It's the only place you can get personal pizza. We're getting off topic here. It started out as I was going to Best Buy to get a Stream Deck after yesterday's episode, when I realized that the interface for Zoom is a little cumbersome. Namely, if you're trying to mute your microphone, if you have your microphone sitting on your computer over your keyboard, it's a little hard to do. So I got a Stream Deck so I can make my life a little bit easier. So I gotta set that up later. But I have a Stream Deck now. This year is all about consistency and quality. So aside from these episodes that we do for new episodes of TV, we're going to be moving away from recording using the phone mic or the car. I honestly don't know which it records off of, because I know I have Bluetooth in here. I just don't know if it records off the Bluetooth mic or if it records off the car mic. Anyway, the point is, so for things like, for things like 30-minute reviews, which we'll be recording a new episode tomorrow, and like movies on Beware of Spoilers, odds are we'll be doing that via, actual sit down and record on the microphone on my laptop and then put it together after. Just comes out better that way. It sounds better sound quality. I don't have to worry about getting into a car accident while I record. And then we're also going to add on additional episodes that I will talk about in the near future. Not for Willow, because the sooner I never talk about Willow again, the better. I'm so over this show. Not that I was ever on the show where I was like, I could be over it. I guess I can't do this anymore. So we're doing the last 3 episodes of Willow. 5, 6, 7. Luckily, 8 is on Wednesday, so we'll be covering 8 on Friday. Friday morning, we'll be covering 8. Because I'm going to move that there and then move National Treasure to Saturday, because I feel like Willow is probably a better... Either way, it doesn't really matter. My thoughts are probably not going to change in the finale. I can't stand this show. I really can't. It's the show that I've been seeing here and I've been grudgingly watching, and I just don't understand. Does anyone like this show? Like, was there anyone who watched this and was like, this is good, this is well made, this is, competently made even, I would settle for, but it's not. It's so poorly done. Like, episode 6, I think it was, is the one where they have the episode where they're going through trying to save Kit, and there's, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, this looks so shitty. Like, the effects are so bad. And then on top of that, you have this moment where you have all these people going to save Kit, and you're like, oh, so let's retread the relationship drama. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is not the time for this. Look at the situation around you. You're sitting here, you're doing, like, why? Who did this and thought this was a good idea, that this is the moment to do this? Like, and the thing is, too, it's like, if you wanted to say that, like, you're doing a show set now or in the real world where it's like, hey, we have the situation happening and, we're not really equipped. This is a fucking fantasy world. People deal with shit like this all the time. Like, this is just the way of the world. And they're like, by the way, yeah, I know we're dealing with something very serious, but, like, let's take a minute to talk about where our relationship stands. Fuck off. Like, all the way off with that bullshit. And like, they're having this discussion in front of one of the worst green screens I have ever seen in my life, where it's like, it looks like the action behind them is on an entirely different plane of existence, and I'm like, who the fuck looked at this and was like, great, move on. Looks fantastic. Like, what the fuck? What the ever-loving fuck happened with this show? At some point in development, did no one go, oh, this is really gonna look shitty? How does no one raise that alarm? No one raises that alarm. And I'm like, what the fuck? And with all this discourse about, like, nepotism in Hollywood and all of that, why the fuck are we not talking about Lawrence Kasdan's son, who's working on this show, who has never done anything good, has only done shit that has not turned out well? I mean, Solo was okay, but if that's the best in his thing, why are we looking at that and looking at, and this show's like, oh, this is good, and then, like, on top of that, like, what about Indiana Jones? I have very little confidence in Indiana Jones now coming out of this show. Like, if this is the guy who's writing it, and this is where this, like, and this guy's controlling how they do a legacy sequel, it's obvious he doesn't know how to do it. So hopefully his writing involvement is minimal at best. Otherwise, I have very low expectations that Indiana Jones will be able to be any good. And looking at these episodes here, I'm like, I don't care about anyone in this show. They have not made me care about a single person. And I think the only person that has any indication, like, and again, the title character is an exposition machine, which is a problem in and of itself. Like, the fact that Willow just wanders around expositing information as the plot demands it. It's like, well, what the fuck? Why are we naming the show after this guy? That would be like, I'm at a loss for words. Like, could you imagine, like, and it's not even like he's interesting while he does it, or it's just like, he's just kind of walking around explaining things. And I'm like, okay, well, I could have read the Wikipedia and gotten the same information. Literally, could have read the Wikipedia and gotten the same information. And it's like, there's so many dumb, like, there's so much lore, and it's so densely packed, and there's so much stuff you need to know to understand this show, and the inner workings of the show, that I'm like, what the fuck? Why is any of this happening? And the show doesn't have a good answer for any of it. Like, they get kidnapped, and they're in this cage, and they're in there with Christian Slater, and I'm like, is that Christian Slater? And then he's like, oh, I'm Mad Mardigan. I'm like, I have not seen Willow, but I'm like 70% certain that that's supposed to be Val Kilmer. I'm like, are they just saying he's Val Kilmer? But no, he's not. I'm like, this is just so dumb. And it's like, they do a lot of little moments where I'm like, who is this for? Like, the moments with the two ogres or the trolls, or whatever the fuck these things are, having these conversations like, oh, well, you know, he rushes to judgment a little bit, and it's like, it's like an old married couple, and I'm like, but who is this for? And it seems like everywhere the fuck they go, they run into this. Whereas, like, there are some people who are just a little quirky and offbeat, and I'm like, but everyone is when they run into them. And it's like, well, what's the, like, okay, but there's diminishing returns on this bit. Where it's like, everywhere you go, you run into, like, the two lumberjack ladies, and you got these two guys, and it's like, well, what the fuck? What the fuck? The best thing that can be said about the show is that at least it's ending soon. And that I will not have to ever think about it again once the show is over. Because it is just so awful. This show is filling the role that Book of Boba Fett was, but at least Book of Boba Fett had that Mandalorian episode in the middle of it. That's like, alright, right on. Like, let's watch the Mandalorian go and do things. Let's go watch, you know, Mando go and fuck shit up. Let's, you know, see some cool design planets, not just fuck around in the desert for 6 episodes or 8 episodes or however long this fucking show was. Like, at least it had that. At least there was that, to be able to be like, okay, well, we're gonna go do that. Oh, and now he's going out, and we're gonna see Grogu train a little bit with Luke, and we're gonna see Grogu go off and be a, what's it called, and be a, you know, in the Naboo starfighter. And it's like, okay, now he's on Tatooine, and he's gotta get the parts, and it's like, at least you have that, where it's breaking up the monotony of, like, fucking Boba Fett, who doesn't know what the fuck to do any time in the entire show, and it's like, why did you even bother making the show if you're gonna do this? Because it's like, who the fuck cares about any of this? Like, and is it gonna have any impact on anything? Like, okay, cool, Boba Fett is taking over Jabba the Hutt's operation. And I'm like, alright, cool. But, like, again, it's kind of like that same thing where it's like, the Book of Boba Fett kind of serves the same as Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where it adds a little color and it fleshes out the characters in a little bit. But ultimately, if you don't watch the show, considering where we last saw the character and where we now see, and where the character could come back in the future, like, there's at least, like, it kind of leaves off in the same place. Where, like, we see Sam get the shield at the end of Endgame, and then we see him pick up, you know, the show is about him giving up the shield, then coming back to the Shield, and then taking on the mantle and accepting that he's Captain America. That's his arc. But ultimately, if you don't watch that show, and you just see him take the Shield, and then you go to see New World Order in 2024 in theaters, and he is now acting as Captain America, you're like, all right, cool, let's move on. We don't need to have seen the show. It's kind of the same in the Book of Boba Fett. You don't have to have seen it, so when they leave off where he's going in, killing Bib Fortuna, taking over operations, and then all of that happens amounting to nothing, and then it goes to, him still being in control and driving out the Pikes, it's like, all right, cool. He's in the same place. And now in The Mandalorian, if he comes back, you can just be like, all right, well, we got Boba Fett. He's here. He's in control of things. Yay. Like that kind of thing. And you're like, all right, well, moving along. But yeah, I just watched this show and I'm just like so disappointed the entire way through. I don't know why I'm disappointed either, because it's like, we've seen Disney Plus do things that look kind of expensive. Like, The Mandalorian looks kind of expensive. Andor looked expensive. This looks cheap. Hell, even that show Parallels looked better than this. And I'm like, and Parallels I had no expectation for, because it's an entirely new thing. And it's just like, I just don't understand. I just don't understand, like, the what went on with this that led to this show being the way it is. Luckily it's almost over. And the thing is too, it's not like Willow was good coming out of the gate. It's not like they took a beloved property that was loved at release and it has at best become a cult classic. That's the best case you can make for Willow, is that it has since its release found something resembling an audience. But if you're going to make this, and I think that's what kind of the budget reflects, is that there's a niche audience for this that will like to watch a Willow continuation series. That they will want to watch it. I don't know if this is the way to go with it to appeal to that audience, and I think that that's part of where this show kind of falls apart. Because I think, too, for something like this, you need to get me in on the ground floor. You need to take into consideration how low your budget is when you're doing things, and just be like, okay, well, we can't afford to do X, Y, and Z, so let's figure out what we can do. Kind of like, the Arrowverse shows, which are low budget, and then by the time we get to season 8 and we have this giant fight in the Speed Force, it looks like it was rendered on a PS2 that was overclocked, that was overheating to the point where it's, it's on fire. By the time you get to that, you're like, all right, I can live with this because I've gotten to this point. But in the beginning, they kind of worked around the effects budget, and we're like, all right, well, we only have X amount of dollars, which is kind of like we have a $10 bill, we can use that for effects. It's all about thinking about that. And it seems like Willow had these grand ideas, then they gave them the budget, and it's like, oh, okay, well, we can probably figure this out within this budget. And then instead of being like, well, why don't we try to reduce the budget? Why don't we try to cut back on what we're gonna do? They're just like, fuck it. We'll figure it out. And I just don't think that was the way to go on this. But we'll wrap up there for today. So Tuesday on 30-minute reviews, we will have our first episode of the new format with what was it? Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. We will have the second episode of Exploring Hyperspace Lanes on Wednesday, and on Friday we will be seeing A Man Called Otto, and at some point this weekend I think we're going to see Plane as well. But until then, have a great rest of your week.